Speaking of reliability, a podcast with good friends talking with you about reliability engineering topics. Welcome to Speaking of Reliability. This is Fred Schenkelberg.
And this is Kirk Gray.
Hey, Kirk, every now and then we talk about how you guys destroy blenders. You haven't talked about that in a while.
No.
But, it made me think of is that there's this, and you were just talking about your fire pit or table or whatever it is, and trying to find a replacement part for it. It made me think of, it's been in the news all kinds of places about this right to repair.
Right.
And apparently Apple set up there's space, and I don't know how many stores they put it in, but there's a bench that you can buy the parts, and they have all the special tools. You can do the repair yourself. So to repair your $1,000 phone might cost you $400 or $500 if you get it right. If you don't repair it well, then you have a broken phone, and you can go buy another $1,000 phone. Exactly. They're very smart about doing that.
I know.
But you have the right to repair, and they made it possible.
Right. They're making a lot of laws. A lot of states, like here in Colorado, just passed a law, I believe, to give farmers, ranchers, the right to repair their own equipment, their large, heavy equipment.
Well, they're getting so many computers in them now, and they're all proprietary stuff. And
Right. So, the question is, what is it that they're trying to repair? Obviously, you have the right to repair. If you had your right to repair your Apple Watch, what are you going to repair in your Apple Watch?
Well, or replace the battery, for example.
Okay.
Right? I don't know.
I don't either.
But if the one button, I think there's a button on it. I don't have an Apple Watch. But let's say the mechanism of the button fails, and the button itself will cost you $20, but it'll take you 4.5 hours to crack the thing open and rewire it and resort it all and not destroy anything else.
Exactly.
Well, it's the same with cars. My first car was a 1967 Oldsmobile, and you could see the engine. It was a big V8, and I think I don't think it had a required pollution control thing. I don't remember what it's called, but it was very small.
Right.
But you set the timing by moving the alternator, or the distributor cap. You
had to set the timing.
You had a timing belt.
It was mechanical.
It was very mechanical to set the distributor cap, and where it was located, set the timing on it.
Right.
And I could read the manual. I could go to the parts, and I could get spark plugs and wires and all that other stuff, and I could do the whole thing.
Right.
Now, I open it up, and the first thing that any manual tells you to do is get a computer that has the right software and plug it in to see what's failing.
Right.
And how it's running. And
That's been a big advance.
Yeah. It's a huge advance, but it also means I can't fix it in my driveway.
Well, no, it's going to be an electronic module, probably, most likely, instead of mechanical. And I would say that's great that we know in general, electronic modules, especially that are built right, are much more robust or do not wear out physically as fast as a mechanical system like that. Rotating timing. Yeah. And I thought the timing belt idea, in cars, you're always supposed to replace your timing belt, which takes a major disassembly process and replacing.
Oh, yeah.
I've done that.
But we have a over the range microwave. So it has a vent underneath it to do that. And it has a tray in the middle of it and the base of it that rotates or is supposed to rotate. And now it's not. Yeah. And so I call the vendor, the company, and I explained, hey, it's not going. And they said, well, did you clean it? I says, well, that's the only option I had in the manual and it's clean and it's seated correctly and all that stuff. And I looked it up on our favorite repair site, YouTube.
Yes.
and they were recording it for a technician. And, it's, you pop this out and you do this, you pull that out and you check the voltages here and here and you see if the motor is bad or not. And if it's not the motor, then it's usually the control panel, or it could be a button, or it could be this. And they were going through this whole thing. And then a great big disclaimers all over it saying, if you're the homeowner, hire somebody that knows what they're doing. because you can really screw it up and yourself
Yes.
quick.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, well, what happened to the right? Yeah, well, there's safety concerns. Unplug it. It's inert now. Right. But if I screw it up and I leave a cover where this microwave radiation is going, then I don't want to do that.
Right.
So how far does this, I mean, I grew up in and around farms growing up, and farmers, the most attended class in high school was welding, because these guys were always welding something out or repairing something on their tractors and combines and everything else. But when you have to, the GPS isn't working, or geez, these farmers these days, their air conditioner is on the blink. They have to drive 4 miles just to get somebody that has the right tools to check it. And it's like, that's just crazy. But anyway, this right to repair stuff, I'm more interested in how does that affect the products that we make, that we get? How far does that get pushed? Do I have the right to buy the new motor for my microwave? Right? Or does the John Deere have to provide an app so you can do diagnostics on your combine? I mean, how far is this
exactly? How
things?
far is it? How far is it going to go? And what are the risks here too? Like you talked about with the microwave, I've replaced the microwave door. I've replaced some of the things, but I feel more because I've dealt with disassembling and assembling equipment quite a bit. I feel very confident that I'm doing it correctly and understanding the principles. But still, there is a safety issue with somebody repairing their own system if it's not done correctly. But I always question, I know that there's been a big push to the right to repair, especially with Apple products, which is, in my experience, has mostly been broken faceplate, the broken glass.
Yeah, we both have daughters.
Right. And then the other one is replacing the battery, which, wears out, is inherently going to wear out over time.
Yeah.
And opening this kind of just, seeing what the procedure is on YouTube, because you can buy, and you have been able to buy kits to do that. I'd say what a pain in the, butt it is to do this. And the chances of you getting it wrong and not sealing it correctly after that, making it less water resistant, essentially making it a less robust product possibly, is just not worth it. Why people are complaining. There's nothing else that's really repairable, I don't believe, in an Apple phone. And as you talked about,
there's
the
switches, the battery, and the screens. And I know they've had issues with different cables because they're so tight and cornered.
Inside
inside cables that they've had issues with it. And there's a long list because they make a bazillion of them, so there's a long list of it.
Right.
But
but
the foldable
how much of
phone
that can be really repaired?
Well, all of it can be. It's not economical.
Potentially.
If you know what you're doing.
There you go.
Yeah.
You have to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Taking off and unsealing that, melting the faceplate glue to take off the glass, you have to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And if you don't, it's going to cost you a lot more. So I think
that's my
technological obsolescence comes very quickly in general.
Yeah, the phones are slowing down. They're
starting to a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. But my point is that if the law goes that it has to be economical, I don't think any of them push it out to that. They're saying you have the right to do the repair and you have to enable that to happen. And so I'm thinking of some products that are like Legos, basically. I want to change this blue one for our red ones. I pull off the blue one and I put on the red one, and it's back to new, right? Or putting the ink cartridges in an inkjet printer, or the toner in a They make it so that you can clear jams and you can add the consumables to it.
Right.
But what if they said, like some inkjet printers now, is you're adding a reservoir of ink and it doesn't have a print head on it. Well, what happens if now the print head goes bad?
Yeah.
Now it's a bit trickier to get in there and do it. But I think part of the gist of this, and I think it started in Europe, is that we're trying to divert this stuff from landfill. So if you got a printer or a computer and the battery goes, or this alignment goes, or something that would be on the order of like replace one motor inside a printer, right? And put it back on. So it's $5 to replace for the component, as opposed to throwing away a $200 box just for $5. I think the logic was in that realm, is just avoid it from going out to trash.
But that's not where the expense or the difficulty. I mean, the part itself, finding. I mean, you might have a penny screw that's missing, but it's at the bottom of your chassis, and you've got to go find out where it is, or anyway,
yeah, you got to take
mechanical
the whole thing
systems,
apart.
right. And that is, if it takes 2 hours to do, you kind of, and depending on what you consider the cost of your time, you really, the printers are now very inexpensive relatively. I mean, I have this, Office Jet Pro, and it was, I think under $100, and they make money off the ink, of course.
But it's just in general. It's just in the design of any product. If you make it repairable, let's say it's a car, right? And you've run into cars where the oil filter is in like in an impossible spot. You need like the 15 angled special tool to even get the thing on or off. If you don't strip it. And then they made them out of aluminum, so that if you don't know what you're doing, you cross thread it, you're screwed, kind of thing. But it's if the design has to be made to be repairable, as opposed, and it changes the fundamental design. It changes the.
It does if it has to be repairable, but that's I don't believe, I don't know the details of these laws, but I don't think that they're requiring the manufacturer to make it repairable. They're just saying that whatever information about spare parts or tools that are necessary, diagnostics, like, you can go to any auto shop and they can plug in their electronic module into your the engine's computer.
It's becoming less true now with more electronic vehicles that are each one has got its own unique set of software, and they charge those independent shops a fortune for it. So they're not going to spend $250,000 to get every manufacturer's proprietary software. Some of the arguments
with the electric vehicles, there's a different standard.
Yeah.
Okay.
So but the idea is that they can, so manufacturers can make it repairable. It might not be economical to do the repair. And I think the trend, though, is going to, somewhere there's going to be a threshold saying if the repair overall, time, parts, labor, everything costs, less than 10% of its current value, let's say it's depreciating and it's whatever, or purchase price or something like that. There's going to be something that's going to come along and say that's the criteria. So instead of, spot welded or, thermally bonded, plastic crimped, all those other stuff that really are not a way to replace a motor. Like the motor is inserted and then it's molded into place.
Yeah.
You really can't replace that.
No.
But if they say, if that motor fails and it's less than $5 of your $200 piece of equipment, you have to allow it to be repaired. And so now the design changes, and that's what I'm talking about. It makes all kinds of manufacturing costs and design costs and trade-offs and accessibility and all those other stuff.
Well, I agree. If that was the case, if they did force manufacturers to say this part of this kind needs, has to be repairable or replaceable, that would be not only cost prohibitive to the well, it would limit what innovations can be in the design. I mean, just think of when you open up an iPhone, it's a flat, almost, two-dimensional bunch of chips. They're not, you can't replace, you really couldn't go in there and replace an IC on an iPhone very well, if at all. I mean, basically,
it's so tight.
It's so tight you can't even get in there. So that's another thing. If you were to force people to have, or force companies, manufacturers to make it available for repair or repairable, you really couldn't have an Apple Watch, that's essentially a little solid brick of electronic
Electronics. Yeah.
chips. Right. It's got a touch screen. It's got two knobs on it to outside mechanical.
So are those knobs so you wind it up? Is that what charges the battery? Is there an app for that so you can wind it and see the power go up?
No, it is interesting how they do an inductive coupled charging for those, and that's just what they're doing in them. But yeah, eventually the battery's going to wear out. So I assume that which is going to come first, technological obsolescence. The watch will be fine, operate for decades, maybe a decade or two. I don't know that anything's there that I can see inherently has a wear out mechanism except the battery.
You keep banging into the concrete walls. That'd be a problem.
They're pretty robust, I must say. I think that they've got it, except for cracking the glass, and I'm not going to try that. I don't see anything, but so this is a trade-off that the manufacturer is going to have, and I think also the consumer thinking that he can repair it is going to destroy it, and maybe even better for the manufacturer.
Well, yeah,
he tries to replace the glass on it, and he screws it up
and has to buy a new one out of guilt, But
that puts it in the landfill.
Yeah, no, I agree with the idea that if you make a product that's reliable, it doesn't have to be repairable, just reliable. That stays out of the landfill. So like your printer, you've had it for years. I've had my printer for years and years, and it still works. Yeah, you buy ink, but it works, and it's been working like a champ whenever we need it. And
and most of the time I keep talking about technological obsolescence, and that I think is what drives, a small percentage. iPhones and smartphones are pretty reliable, except of course now the foldable phone. I think that's funny. I posted that recently again.
I saw that. Yeah, with the Galaxy now
not again. Yeah, and the reviewer said there's a crease. It's a very noticeable crease in the middle, and I'm going, well, he says this is just blatantly obvious, and he says this is glaringly a problem in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, this is not going to get any better. It's going to get worse. So why are they doing this? Are they going to have a repairable screen? Do they have to have a right to repair on that foldable creased screen over time?
Yeah. No, I'll just put some fingernail polish on top of it and just hide it. But it's and of course, then the critical letter of the legal document you're reviewing is right under the crease, and so you can't see it.
Exactly. But why? Is it going to force? I don't think it's going to force manufacturers to make things more repairable. And you brought up a thing about the motor or molded in, and that is not only that saves them manufacturing costs, it may save them a lot of other things.
Well, the screws don't back out if there's no screws.
Right, exactly. So I don't think that I can't see ever laws getting in that much detail. With I think the farm equipment, they made the manufacturers release the software that does the diagnostics for the farm equipment. Right. And some other things that obviously were something simple and easy for the farmer to be able to see and decide whether he wanted to repair it himself.
Yeah. But if you know that it's a control panel, and there's access to the control panel, you can replace that whole module.
Right.
That's different. And I'm thinking of the other example is military vehicles. I mean, when I was in the Army, this is years and years and years ago, it was like the vehicle, my first car, it was completely manageable by me, the driver. And if they wanted the pull the engine, then a mechanic with the right tools would do it. And we didn't rarely with these Jeeps that we had ever have to go to depot unless there was some major thing. And there was almost no major things on these things. Right. But there were echelons of maintenance, and there was different, criteria because of special skills or special tools that they were done at different places. The vast majority of everything on that thing was that I did. I mean, I could replace windshields, I could replace seats, I could replace the batteries, I did all the timing and tuning and oil change, and all that stuff was to the driver. And it was And I can't imagine that on the new vehicles they got out nowadays. It was Hummers for a while, and then they got something else coming at them. And I was like, I know that they probably had to design it so that there was field replaceable modules and units. You take this box out and put a new box in, and you're up and running, because availability becomes way more important for a military vehicle.
Right.
So for us, it's the right to repair for a farmer is critical. If the corn's not going to wait, it's time to harvest. It's time to harvest. And if I have to spend 2 days going off to a repair shop and wait 2 more days for the parts, I need that time is critical. And so I understand them saying, hey, we got to have this access.
Right. And it's $100,000 piece of equipment.
And it's a $10 million crop, And,
and you've got a $35 circuit board that you need to find out needs to be replaced. So, and you can't really drive these things very easily to the shop. They're pretty big, So anyway, so that's, I just say for some product lines that makes a lot of sense, but for me, dense digital packaging, digital electronics, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense or inexpensive.
Your repair is give us enough money for a new one, and then you're repaired. We'll take your old one. It's a replacement, not a repair.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they do. I don't think Apple goes in and replaces individual chips in a returned iPhone. They just throw the whole thing away. I mean, the circuit board is not worth it.
I saw an article the other day that there's a reason companies will give you a rebate when you trade in your phone. They'll give you $100 for an old iPhone, and they can sell it or donate it to the advantage of $200, $300, $400. And they're not reusing the parts. They might, replace the screen if it's cracked or, one or two things, but there's a aftermarket market that's way more lucrative than what their offer is to get it back. And
to some technological level, they don't. You can't get anything for an iPhone 4. You can't get anything for an iPhone 5. I don't believe. I've seen the trade-in values. There is a technological level of obsolescence, just like the flip phones.
Oh, the flip phones are a high demand for Hollywood sets that are set in that time frame, and so you got a market of 3.
I was watching Death and Life, one of the shows, and it was set in the 70s or whatever. And I'm thinking, where did they get all these old IBM computers and stuff that they had in these off scenes and old dial, handsets?
Oh, I did a webinar this week and I had pictures of payphones. And one of the comments was, where did you get pictures of payphones? And I says, well, I wasn't walking around the street looking for them.
Exactly. So it's technological obsolescence is what, from in my view, drives most of the electronics into a landfill. My CD players, my DVD players now, and of course the old video cassette players are all not because we couldn't repair them, but because technology passed them by and it's improved so much. And now
you can't improve those cassette tape sets we made for our girlfriends or crushes back in high school. You can't replace those.
Mixtapes.
Mixtapes,
No.
Recorded off the radio,
Right.
We had a radio station that used to talk about right to repair. These guys would say, we're not going to bleed this over or talk over it. This is our clean song of the day. And then it would be like at 7 o'clock every night. And they would play and they would go, all right, we're going to get your recorders ready.
Right.
And we'll pause and then we'll play. And then we'll pause and then we'll start talking again. Those days are gone.
All those copyright issues. And anyway.
Well, we're not reselling it, But anyway, this right to repair stuff it's coming. I think the idea of avoiding, we avoid spending $5 but throw away $200 into a landfill. The logic to me just makes sense. It has an impact on the design of the products right from the start. If it gets legislated, you have to make it repairable. Well, it might cost more, but if I can replace a $5 motor and keep my $200 printer going for another 10 years, I'm all for it. Or replace the batteries or stuff like that. Maybe it's got to be economic trade-off, and there's always a balance there.
Right. It used to be smartphones had easily replaceable battery compartments. You
You
pulled out
drop
the
the phone and
battery.
the battery'd fall out.
Yeah, exactly. But so that was another thing that made it, here you just made an example of something that was easily replaceable.
Mm-hmm.
And then the phone manufacturers made it a sealed unit.
Yeah.
And that was good from a water resistance standpoint. It made it much more reliable.
Yeah, much more reliable.
And smaller. And,
with the built-in obsolescence.
Well, but yes, you could get it, the battery replaced, and I've had that done. But I find when I replace it on one of my iPhones, I realized only a few months later that it was really technologically obsolete as far as the improved cameras, the improved screen, the size of the screen, all these other things drove me to. I still have it sitting here. It's a great little computer, hand computer, iPhone 6S, but it's, what am I going to do with it? I could sell it. I kind of keep it as a backup to my iPhone 11 just in case, I need to have another phone. I can pull out the SIM card and put it in there and, got it back. But it's it's sad because I think it's got thousands of songs in it. It's technologically obsolete, but it's still very functional. It could be used for something, right. But everything else is, pass it by, just like our computers. If you have an old one, it runs so slow. It's not that it's broken.
Mm-hmm.
You used to be able to upgrade the CPU package. You could actually drop in a different CPU,
but socket,
that's not possible really now.
No.
And I don't want manufacturers to necessarily have to trade off to make something repairable for me than making an efficient and compact design. We got to let the people get their fingers in here to pull out the, heat, whatever, the fan, say a mechanical thing like a cooling fan. That's a terrible trade-off, and it may make the design less reliable to try and do that.
And you see it in industrial components, as those are more often very repairable, but it's demanded by that market. I don't want this auger system to go down and shut down my whole production line. Right. I need to have the spare parts on hand and I can fix it, kind of thing. So there's different where that's going, but I think it's still evolving. We'll still see more coming about it. And I think it's going to be interesting. So anyway, we'll wrap it up. It's, if you're thinking of what in the world are you guys talking about, but I'm curious though.
I dare anybody to try and replace a 0402 MLCC capacitor on the circuit board.
It can be done. I have seen it done.
Yeah, okay.
And I have done
great.
it. Yeah, and there's smaller ones now too. You just need a better magnifying glass. They look like jewelers' headsets, with like high magnification and lighting built on a headset, kind of thing. But there's always a trade-off with skill and capability and tools and equipment and design, and that's never going away. I think the legislation, though, is going to. I'm just curious, if you're listening to this, are you seeing this right to repair affect your industry? And what kind of things are changing, or is it just not in the a big deal for you guys? Well, let us know. Head over to accendoreliability.com/go/SOR. You can find a couple ways to get in touch with us. Kirk and I and the other hosts of the show are available through LinkedIn or our About pages. And so we're very interested on this topic, what your thoughts are, or on if you have any questions. We always look forward to interacting with you and answer questions, or at least think about them and talk about them on one of the shows.
Right. And let us know. This is a really fascinating subject because it is being legislated across the United States for different products. And do you think this is a good idea, or do you think it's counterproductive for in our world, reliability in particular?
Yeah, exactly. All right. Thanks, Kirk.
Okay, Fred. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks for listening to Speaking of Reliability. We invite you to join the conversation. If you have a question or a topic that you think we should discuss in a future show, please let us know. You can find a comment box below the episode show notes, or just leave a note as part of a review on iTunes.